Okay, so hopefully the light is pretty good so you can see what's going on here. What I did was I removed as much of the cortex as I could um, and tried to flatten it and stuff at the same time and preserve as much width as possible. I was using the hard hammerstone to knock down the edge to make it dull, to create some strong areas, and then I was using the softer limestone to dry flakes, and I lost a substantial amount of my hammerstone. And that's what happens with limestone. I think what I did was I hit it there. So you go through these pretty fast, these softer hammerstones. And I don't have very much of this. This is actually from building material. It comes from these blocks that are cut out for masonry walls, for decorative masonry. And these are cut out from subterranean limestone. It's mined, so it's a little bit better quality than what you find on the surface, but it's still pretty soft, and it does break up. Okay. So I try not to create any step fractures on the surface during this bifacing stage. I'm not going to do the whole thing with natural materials. I am going to use some modern tools here in a little bit. But I like to prepare these with hammerstone. Instead of using a bopper or something. Even though I could probably get more accuracy with a bopper. You know, with a handle and a copper tip on it, or a round copper cap. I do still prefer to use hammerstones to reduce this down. Even though it's risky, as you saw earlier, like I said, this is the only piece I have to complete this Clovis point. I could use a bopper or make one for the video to be more safe, but oh well. Let's see. Now, I believe this is Sonora chert. It's very, very high grade material. So any slightest hit will produce a flake. But it also is a drawback in that every time you hit it, it produces some sort of result on this stone. All the high quality stones that you will work, you have to be very careful about what you do, because every hit that can produce some sort of effect. With tougher material and with lower grade materials, believe it or not, some of them are easier to work than the high grade materials. But if you're a new napper, the high grade materials are the only ones that are going to show you flaws in your technique, or be consistent enough for you to learn what's wrong with your technique. So it's very hard to explain to new people that they should be using high quality material, even though it's more difficult for beginners to nap. The high quality material will show you the flaws in your technique so you can correct your technique much easier than a lower grade that might actually be more forgiving and won't, produce an effect every time you hit it. Every little hit won't on a tougher material, it won't produce all these incipient cracks and flakes that seem to come off with absolutely no effort. Now, what I'd normally recommend for new people is to get the best material you can. I know some guys will get the best material, period. And then they say, well, I got the best material and I still can't nap. I still can't do anything with it. And the reason is because it will amplify every little mistake. If that makes sense. I don't know if that's making any sense. Now, I recently had a really difficult set of questions from a couple different people. And I'm trying to think through how to best describe exactly what's going on as far as angles and forces and platforms and preparation and material of a tool, material of a workpiece. I try to come down to a very precise, very crisp explanation in a sentence or two on how to focus on flaking and producing long flakes and how to avoid step fractures. Because I've gone through lots of lengthy explanations and I've done many videos, and sometimes I tell people watch the whole video. It's it's kind of long, but it'll give you an idea of how to avoid step fractures and stuff. And I'm finding that works with a lot of people, but there's some people that the longer the explanation, the harder it is for them to understand it. So in this next series of videos coming up, I'm going to try to condense all the information into as short an explanation as possible, if I can, and try to incorporate that right as I'm napping, and try to explain everything exactly. Instead of doing one type of napping like I'm doing now and explaining something else. Right now I'm just eliminating the weak spots on the edge. Just set myself up for driving flakes again. Another series of thinning flakes. Now what I'm doing is I'm trying to get rid of concave areas and make both surfaces convex, if I can, without losing too much width. And just hit those good looking areas kind of at random after I'm done with this process. I'm using the soft hammerstone because I don't want to have a lot of crushing, even though earlier I was getting crushing with the soft hammerstone because I was using a lot of force trying to remove some larger flakes. But this way I'm just removing tiny flakes. It's really good for tiny flakes. Now before I was using a lot of force and it was kind of dimpling this and it wasn't really grabbing exactly the way I wanted to, and it would just crush the edge. It wasn't grabbing enough meat to pull the flake off. It was grabbing a little bit and it would just peel off a bunch of little flakes and cause crushing and stuff. Even though it's soft, and even though it grabs, it has to grab a lot if you want to remove large flakes. Anyway. Okay, so let's see. At this stage, I don't know whether to continue with a modern tool or just do a few more of these flake removals with the Hammerstone. Maybe a few more. I gotta hit that just right, and I'd rather miss than hit it too high. I almost messed that up by creating a step there. Yeah, I need to use a modern tool because I'm going to mess this up. That wasn't too bad. Comparatively speaking, with a modern indirect percussion tool, I could have run longer flakes and made it thinner than that. Deeper, longer flakes than to try to hit cautiously, but yeah. So that bullseye is going to be a little off center, it looks like. You kind of can still see some of those bands in there. Alright, now these tools here that I'm going to be using for this video and for the next series of videos are going to have copper tips. Sorry. They're going to have copper bits. I mean the copper, aluminum bits. I've switched over to using aluminum this past month. I mean, I made a whole new set. Oops. Let's see if I can grab these here. Sorry about that. The stool I was sitting on is it's got too much debitage underneath it. Okay, so let's see. All right. Thought I had a smaller diameter aluminum. Anyway, I don't have an 1/8 inch diameter aluminum bit. These are 1/4 inch. This is 1/4 inch too. This is 3/8, and you can buy this aluminum at the hardware store. Okay. Now, aluminum is very similar to antler, and I know some of the guys out there are going to cringe when I say that. but it's somewhat similar. It's a lot softer than copper. Grabs the edge more, and it's not bad. I mean, it's not a bad material. In fact, it's cheaper, and I get some good results. So I'm switching over to aluminum. For a lot of these vids coming up. All right, so you can see how long that was, which is very similar to a billet, a antler billet, or indirect antler bit strike. Now, one of the questions I had was, how do you make these long, thin flakes? And if I had an easy explanation, I think I could sell 1,000,000 copies of that book. But I'll try in this series of videos coming up. I know I must have said that a bunch of times already. I am going to be describing this process a little bit better. And I probably have the camera looking the other way instead of looking at the workpiece like I'm looking at it. I'll be, shooting the view, this way, so you can see the angle that the tool and the workpiece has, and how I'm striking. The camera will be further away than this, and hopefully it'll give you a better view. And I'll try to explain everything. Now, this is a step fracture near the edge, but I can blow through that, hopefully. Yeah, see? And that kind of stuff too you can do with high quality material. See that step fracture on the edge? If I just hit just barely high enough, you can kind of get under those. But it's risky. But with high grade material, you can get away with stuff like that. And of course, the aluminum is soft and it grabs a good portion of the edge, and as long as you've got it dulled well, it'll produce some good flakes usually. I was hoping for a deeper flake than that. Let's see. Yeah. I'm not sure why it dishes like this. It's probably because I'm hitting above center line, and also because I'm trying to go too deep with that flake. So I should just be trying to skim over the top. Okay. See, because this is way below center line, and I'm striking this way because I don't want to lose width, and it's probably counterintuitive, but I also don't want to lose this side here, this material, because there's more banding on this side than there is on this side. I don't know if you can see, but this is a better quality. Cosmetically, this is better quality, so I don't want to send flakes across here and get rid of some of that nice material. So I'm kind of breaking the rules and trying to take off this mass by hitting in a kind of a weird way to get rid of that. And when you try that, a lot of times you get these dished out flakes, dished out instead of traveling over. They just kind of dish in. We'll see. I could probably make those platforms a little bit better. Anyway, I'm going to try to do a video every day now for the next few days, and shake off some of this rust that I got. I'm a little rusty after a few weeks or whatever it was. And I've got to get working on some more points for my patrons for the month of March. Yeah, I got some stepping there. But yeah, I'm trying to preserve the quality of the surface so there's no step fractures anywhere along the edges and on the surface. I don't know how successful I'm being as far as on the edge here. The surface looks okay. And I don't really need to be this careful. It's just that I don't want to break this piece again, so I'm being really careful. There's a lot of aluminum being deposited on there. The platform's really strong, and it's not like copper. This will peel away and lose a lot of material on the strong platforms. But I don't want to force the issue too much. I want to be able to, you know, push the aluminum to its limit. Because I can get better flakes that way. Instead of being safe and going high up on a platform and then trying to compensate for the softness of the material, I'm trying to stay right on the edge of the ability of the aluminum to remove a flake. I don't know if you can see. It gets dished out really fast. So there's more maintenance with aluminum. But I think it also produces a nice flake pattern. Nice flake scar. Maybe not a pattern. If you're not good at doing patterns, but it should produce some nice flake scars. See, I'm right at the edge of the limits of this aluminum. If it was copper, that would have gone already. That would have already taken a flake off. It's kind of a hard spot in there, so let's see. Oops. I don't want to be dropping the material on a bunch of debitage. There you go. I don't want to be dropping the workpiece on a bunch of large debitage because then it'll break. This will tip off and it could also damage the edge. All right, where was I? Yeah, that's a little bit better. See, I wanted to scoop out a lot of that, and that's what I'm looking for, a thick flake like that. Again, that just dished inward and popped out a little bit too soon. Can't tell where that cut is. Yeah, see, I just barely hit that too hard, and look at that. It took out a cone with a nice little step fracture. Step termination. Okay, so I'm turning this, I'm turning this around as I go to get to a spot that doesn't have a depression in it to make some solid contact with these platforms, and I'm going to have to dress this up pretty soon. What that means is I'm going to have to file this smooth again. Now, I hit that really hard. Now, the danger with hitting it that hard is you end up with more cracking than you want here. Even though it takes off a nice thick flake, you end up with a lot more cracking than you would normally get. So I got to be careful. Now, it's not as bad with a soft bit like with antler or aluminum. It doesn't create as many incipient fractures like a steel or a copper would, or a hammerstone. Anyway, let's see. And it's okay if it has a little bit of a depression in there when you're, trying to hook onto the edge there, but it can't be like too much. I don't like having a notch that really grabs onto it because it's hard to know if it's your swing or the notch that's doing the work. So I'd rather have a smooth bit than a notched one. There's other reasons why too. I've gone over other reasons why I don't like notches. Usually I change the depth of each strike depending on the strength of the platform, and a notch is consistent depth. And notches work if you have a consistent, continuous platform. All the properties are the same all the way down. You can have a consistent notch and then do your flaking. But if it's all random, you can't really have a notch on here. So that's another reason. So see, I don't want it to catch. It can catch a little bit, but I don't want it to catch a lot and get stuck. Yeah, I gotta watch this. See that? I don't know what to call those flakes that not flakes, but fractures that go the other way, that go into the stone this way instead of scooping it out like a conchoidal fracture will scoop it out like this. Some of these fractures are going this way into the stone this way. And I've looked at different sources to see what they're called, and I can't seem to find a name for the fractures that go in this way, this way, instead of going this way. So I'm just going to call these like spider leg fractures that go in to the stone this way and that way instead of trying to scoop it out. These little spider legs will, if you hit really hard and you got it placed too firmly on the edge and you hit really hard, it sends in these spider leg fractures. And I got to watch those and clear them out as much as I can at this stage. Now, I don't think I've described that too much in the past, but I'm going to try to describe it more now. To try to get the science of these long, thin flakes explained as best I can. Okay, it's already like 30 minutes, so I'm going to stop here. Probably should do this when there's daylight hours. Hopefully you can see with this light here, the shop light. Okay. Okay, so I'll call it quits for now. Four and a half. Still got some good dimensions for that Clovis. Okay.